All right. Welcome, everybody, to the webinar. We are really excited today. My name is Kathleen Jasper, and we are doing SLLA 6990 and Praxis 5412. So both of these two tests are identical, except the 6990, the SLLA 6990, has a writing component, and we're going to go over that today. But whether you're here for the 5412 or the 6990, I recommend staying for the constructed response at the end, because even if you're taking the 5412 and you do not have a constructed response, it's going to help you with the multiple choice, that critical thinking you need for the multiple choice. All right, so we're just getting started. Go ahead and come on into the interview. We've got Sandy, Shanavia, Vanessa, Vicky, LaPortia, Marquise. Welcome. Good morning. Tell me where you're from in the chat. We have about 1,000 people signed up for this. We'll probably have about 50 to 80 attend live. Remember, when this is over, you are going to get an email from me probably about 20 minutes after this is over with the replay link and all of the information we talk about. So if you did not have time to download the free study guide, if your internet goes out, something happens, you are going to get the replay. So don't worry. You can watch it again. You can listen to it, whatever you want to do. We're going through everything today. All right. Good morning, Angie, Courtney, lots of people, Wyoming, New Jersey. We always have lots of people from New Jersey. Welcome, New Jersey, Kansas, Virginia, Florida, Pennsylvania, Delaware. Awesome. Tennessee. Very good. Atlanta, Memphis. All right. Well, welcome everyone. So just to give you a quick background of who I am, my name is Kathleen Jasper, and I've been helping people pass their teacher and leadership certification exams now for about 10 years. I know a lot about the testing industry. When I was a curriculum specialist in my prior life, when I worked at the district, I was trained by some of the biggest testing companies in the world, and that helped us understand blueprints, specifications, how they write items, what they do. I know all the tricks of the trade, and I share them with you in my study guides and in my videos and all of that. Today, we are going through the leadership exam, which I'm obsessed with. I, too, was an assistant principal before leaving to start my own company. I've gone through this process. I know how difficult it can be. The test is a big one, and it should be, because if you're going to be an AP or a principal, you should have to, jump through a few hoops, in my opinion. And I'm here to help you do all of that. Now, if you're a new teacher and you're just like, I just want to see what this test is all about, welcome. I was already thinking about leadership 2 years into my teaching career. So if you're one of those who wants to kind of move quickly through the process of teaching, you still need several years of teaching before you can become an assistant principal in most states. Like, you had to have at least 3 years in my state. Other states do 5. It just depends. But it's always good to be thinking ahead and getting some ideas. And what I talked to you about today is going to help you on all your exams. So if you're here and you're not sure if you want to be a leader yet, no worries. Just hang out, watch, whatever. Again, we are going through the free study guide that came with this webinar. If you did not have time to download it, no big deal. You will get it in a follow-up email. So you know how the teachers always say, don't worry about what's in front of you. Just watch me, eyes on me. That's how I prefer, because we're going to go over some important stuff, and I don't want you to miss it by trying to download or figure things out. Okay. All right. Maryland, Virginia, New Jersey, lots of New Jersey. So glad you guys are here. South Carolina, Ohio. Good morning, everyone. All right. So let's talk about the SLLA 6990 and the Praxis 5412. Now, I said this in the beginning. These are identical exams, except that the 6990 has a writing task, meaning you have to write to 4 constructed response prompts and write an essay. And the 5412 does not. The Praxis 5412 is just multiple choice. Now, I'm going to go through some practice test questions that come from my study guide. Some of you have this study guide already. Some of you don't. I'm going to go over this, where you can get it, in just a second. You did get a free study guide with this webinar, and lots of people just use our free stuff and they do great, and that's fine. But if you want some more, this has lots of questions in it. It's relatively thick. It goes through pretty much every concept on the exam. And I also have a book for the 5412, which is the exact same book, just minus the constructed response. But again, I recommend staying for the constructed response, even if you're 5412, because it's going to help you with the critical thinking you need. Okay. So let's talk about where you can get some extra stuff before we get started on the actual test itself. So let me just take you over to my website here. And this is KathleenJasper.com. You can find all of our study guides here. If you go into our programs and you go into 6990 here, you'll find everything we have for the Praxis or for the SLLA 6990. Again, same test as the 5412. We have an online course. The online course has everything. It has the study guide digitally, it has the audio course, and it has hours of video tutorials going through everything, especially the writing. So if you're someone who wants a comprehensive look at everything, the course is great. You're going to get a 20% coupon today. So don't buy anything yet. Wait till we give you the 20% off coupon. And Yana is in the chat. She'll put that in the chat in the webinar. We have a study guide here, and we have the audio course here. Now, the audio course is awesome. Lots of people opt for this. It is the study guide plus the audio version, and it's like a podcast or an audio course, which is great. I love to learn. I'm an auditory learner, so this is awesome for me. But if you get the online course, you get everything. You get the videos, you get the audio course, and you get the digital version of the study guide. Now, really quick, I just want to go over the study guide and then we'll get started. You can see here we have the 5412 or the 6990. Again, you can get it as a digital download. Everything on our website is digital. So you can put this on your iPad, you can, put it on your computer, save it to your computer. But if you're someone who prefers a digital copy, just click the Amazon and you will see that we have over 282 5-star reviews here. And this is, you get it on Amazon Prime. Now listen, buy it from Prime. If you're getting like the cheaper version, I sometimes get emails. They say, hey, my book didn't come for like a week and a half. That's because you might be buying it from a third-party vendor. You have to buy it from us, the Prime today here. Now, it might be a little bit more. It might be, right now it's $37.99. Sometimes it's $39.99. But that ensures that you're going to get it in 2 days. If you do some other way where you get a cheaper version, it's somebody selling their book and it may have writing in it. And we get emails about that. Hey, my book had writing in it. Well, you bought it from a third party used on Amazon. That's not us. That's somebody else selling their book. So make sure you have a look at that and you can see, I'm the only seller on this page. Sometimes there's another seller. Super annoying, but whatever. People are allowed to do that. So make sure you hit the Prime if you're going to Amazon. We also have it for the 5412. So if we go to the study guide, let's just go leadership exam, 5412. Same thing. Audio course here, digital download on our website or physical copy on Amazon. You can see here it is. And again, we don't want to go with too cheap of a version. We want to make sure that we are buying the Prime if you want it within a couple days. Okay. So, and then if you want the online course for the 5412, it's the same as the 6990. So if you want the online course and you want everything, just grab the 6990 online course. It's all the same. Okay. All right. So that's just where you can buy some extra stuff. Otherwise, you can just use our free stuff. Some of you need to save money. I too need to save money. So I would start with the free. And then if you're like, I want a little bit more, you can always use the offer code that we will put in the chat and in the email. And you could decide later if you'd like to, or you can buy it now, whatever you want. Oh, one more thing. I just published this. I wanted to share this with you guys before we get going. I have a brand new leadership interview course. This is for those of you who are trying to become school leaders. And this is a really hard interview process. I went through it. Lots of you are in the middle of it. I recommend getting this course. And again, the 20% off coupon is going to help you reduce the price of this, but it's still worth it. I mean, it's $49.99 and it's got hours of video tutorials for every single kind of content area you'll be asked about in your leadership interview. I've hired lots of assistant principals. I was an assistant principal. I was actually on hiring committees for new APs. I know what they're going to ask. I know how they want you to answer. I have some strategies, specific questions. There's downloadable questions you can print out and kind of write notes on as we're talking. So this is another thing. We'll link this up in the email. And again, the 20% off coupon will help you with that. So Yana is in here. You can see if you just scroll down. She's right here. She's under host as well. She's got the coupon there for you guys to use, and we'll also send it in the email. Ashley, thank you so much. The book is amazing. If you do not have it, I highly recommend it. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate you purchasing my products, and I'm thrilled that you found them helpful. I've been studying these exams for a long time, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the leadership exam, especially. So, all right. So let's have a look at what we're talking about today. So I'm going to pull up my presentation. We're going to go through the content categories and talk about it. And then we're going to do some specific questions. I'm not going to do every single question in the free study guide. I'm going to do several, but then I want to talk about the constructed response because I think people get really tripped up in that. And I want to make sure we cover all of that. All right. All right, let me just go through and make sure we don't have any questions. Vicky, I missed it by 2 points. Okay, let me tell you something, Vicky. That's great. Just missing it by 2 points. I know it's a letdown. This is a very difficult exam. Lots of people have to take it more than once. It's okay. So, I understand we all want to hit it the first time. Sometimes it's good to be exposed to the test one time through. Then you're better prepared, remembering what you got, kind of Googling some of those concepts when you get home, honing in on where you were low once you get your report. I would say to you what you would say to your students, right? It's okay. Let's study a little harder and we'll get it the next time. It's okay. Lots of people have to take it more than once. So it's not a failure. It's just moving forward. Remember, with leadership, resiliency is a big concept. You'll see it on the exam. And being resilient means that when you fail, and you will fail daily as an educational leader, as an assistant principal, it's literally falling on your face 24/7. You analyze the data, you figure out where there are holes, you plug those holes, and then you try it again. And we do that with the exam as well. So you totally can do this. 2 points is like one question. I know it's a bummer, but that means you're almost there. So you can do it. Okay. Alan, thank you. Michelle, great. Thank you. I'm a book person as opposed to digital. Michelle, awesome. If you want the physical, you can get that on Amazon. The offer code won't work on Amazon. We can't discount on Amazon because it's KDP Publishing. They are the publisher. So we can't use the discount on Amazon, but if you want a physical, you can get it from Amazon. All right. And one more thing. Don't print this whole thing out. If you're like, oh, I want to save like $5 or whatever the 20% off is, actually it'd be like $7. It's not worth the ink and the paper, So if you need physical, just get it on Amazon. I don't recommend printing the book. You could just print the practice test. You may want to do that so you can write it out, but I don't recommend printing the book. Okay. All right. When will the webinar finish? Probably in about 45 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour. All right. So let's get started. Let me share my screen with you really quickly. And we're going over here. All right. Oops. This is the wrong thing. Hang on. Let me stop sharing. My mirror. Talk amongst yourselves really quickly. My mirroring app just went down. So there we go. Okay. I got it. I want to be able to write on the screen, so I have to do it a certain way. And sometimes it disconnects. Okay. Here we go. We should be good here. All right. So this is the breakdown of the exam. Now this goes with the 5412 and the 6990, except for the 5412, we don't have this right here. Okay. So this is just for the 6990 here. The constructed response. You have 4 questions and it's worth 25% of the exam. You can't, skip out on the constructed response. It's very important that we look at the constructed response and work on it. And we're going to talk about it today. All right. So let's have a look at the different content categories here. We have strategic leadership, 20 questions. Okay. These are going to be questions all about the vision, the mission, and the goals. Keep in mind for strategic leadership that this is a democratic Process, we are bringing in teachers, community members, the custodial staff, the office staff. We are forming committees to make decisions. You are ultimately the leader. You are the one that makes the decision, but you are getting input from lots of people. We are analyzing data. We are conducting a needs assessment, good word on this exam. I'm going to tell you lots of good words you should be in the lookout for in the correct answer choices. All right. Needs assessment means you're collecting data on what the school needs. Then you bring that information to a committee. You speak with the committee. You get some input, democratic process, lots of important people telling you different ways in which you should look at it. Ultimately, you make the decision, but you are using input from all places. That's strategic leadership. And again, looking at the data, disaggregating the data, good word, and really figuring out where you need to allocate resources and things like that. All right. Then the biggest one here at 27 questions is instructional leadership. Very, very important, because what is our purpose? Our purpose is to increase student achievement. So think of these good words: closing the achievement gap, making sure all students achieve, training teachers properly on what they need to do to increase student achievement. All of that is our job in instructional leadership. So this has the most questions because it is arguably the most important job. Okay. Then we have climate and cultural leadership at 22 questions, give or take. Climate and cultural leadership is all about being culturally responsive with your students and your staff, seeking out a diverse teacher group to help lead your school, to help students, making sure that we are being culturally responsive, not just to different cultures, different genders, making sure that all cultures see themselves represented in the reading materials, in the curriculum, following the standards, and also making sure that we are not, making any one group feel less than or anything like that. Most of you are probably doing a great job at this. One of the things you want to keep in mind for climate and cultural leadership is being culturally responsive and training teachers to mitigate their implicit bias. We all have implicit bias. We want to work really hard on reducing that. And as a leader, we can do that in several ways. One of the best ways we can do that is by hiring people from different cultures and making sure we have lots of different representations of all different types of people in our leadership teams, on our faculty, and also in our books, in our curriculum, and things like that. Right. Then we have ethical leadership, 19 questions. This is all about what do we do when there's a problem with, sometimes it's students, sometimes there's a big discipline issue with students. This has to do with student rights. Due process is a good word under ethical leadership. Collecting data and conducting investigations is good under ethical leadership. Remember, if we have an incident with a teacher, maybe a teacher did something unethical or a student did something that broke the rules, we want to document everything. Documentation, good word. We want to follow protocol. There is a protocol in place for a reason. You can't just decide on the fly what you're going to do, especially when it comes to teacher misconduct. That's something we got to really follow the district protocol. Very important. And we also want to make sure we conduct an investigation. You can't just take, and no offense to teachers, a teacher feels a certain way about something that might have happened, or a teacher thinks she saw something in a hallway. You can't just say, okay, the kid's suspended. You have to talk to the student, conduct an investigation. Some of the investigations are big and very intense. Others are quick. And then you go through a due process where the student has a chance to say his or her side of the story. The same with teachers. There might be an issue with a teacher. You don't just go and fire the teacher. You're not allowed to do that. You have to conduct an investigation, document everything, follow protocol. There might be legal implications. You might have to call downtown to the district office for help there. It all just depends. But remember, follow protocol, documentation, and conducting investigations. That conducting investigations is data collection, and data collection is probably the most important thing you do as a leader. Collecting data, analyzing data, and making decisions based on that. Next one is organizational leadership at 16 questions. This is all about the building, the safety of the students. Protocol is a big one on here as well. Fire drills, unfortunately, active shooter drills, bomb threats, making sure your special education students are safe and they have access to elevators and things like that. I learned from a master at organizational leadership, his strengths. My principal, who brought me up to assistant principal, he was a master in logistics and the building, which is so important. We focus a lot on this now, which is the instructional leadership, which we should. It's important. Curriculum and instruction is important. But I feel like a lot of times we forget about this. The building. The building's really important, making sure it's safe, making sure it's clean, making sure the staff are taken care of, making sure students can get to where they need to go. All of that is important. These are little towns we're running here. Some schools have thousands of students. I mean, that's bigger than a lot of towns. So we need to make sure that students and faculty and staff are safe. And the last one before the constructive response is community engagement leadership. 16 questions. This is all about leaving your office and going out into your school community. So interacting with teachers and students, interacting with parents, interacting with business leaders. We want to make sure that we are an inclusive school, that we are constantly fostering, a culture of inclusion. We want to have curriculum nights where parents feel good about coming to school and seeing what the kids are doing. We want to build relationships with local businesses, even some bigger businesses like Target and Walmart in the area of schools. They often will give to schools. Want to make sure we are including them in maybe some of the decision-making process. Working with law enforcement. Maybe we have some issues with the car rider line, law enforcement can help us figure that stuff out. Working with city council. I know at my school where I was, the high school, we worked really closely with the city council in that area because they bought us a new sign for our school. They helped, give us funds and things like that. So all of that's very important, community engagement. One thing about community engagement is that we're keeping diversity in mind. We serve everyone in the community. The school is often a pillar of the community. So we want to make sure we are not just, going with the people we know and whom we're more comfortable with. Want to make sure we're getting out there and talking to everybody. That might mean bringing translators with us, people who can translate what we're saying into whatever language those in our community speak. We, want to make sure that we can communicate properly. Also making sure that teachers are communicating with the community as well. So when they're sending home, newsletters and permission slips and things like that, that they are using, multi languages to send those out, stuff like that. And then finally, the last part is the constructed response. Now listen, the constructed response can pull from all of these here. So let's say you got the study guide here. This is what I see happens with a lot of people. They read through the study guide. They do a great job. They know all the good words. They identify the good words in the answer choices. And when they get to the constructed response, they're stuck. Remember, the good words in the multiple choice are going to be good words for your constructed response. So you're going to want to use those in your writing as well. So you're going to want to pull from everything you learned in the study guide and be able to communicate in that in your writing. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Okay. All right. So let's go into the first question I have here. This is number 1. Let me just see. Okay. We're jumping around a little bit. This is number 1 in the free study guide. And remember, let me just go here. This is the free study guide here. And it's an abbreviated study guide. Okay. And I have a constructed response for you for this presentation that we will send out in the email. So if you're watching this in the future, you already got it in the email. If you're watching this the day of, which is July 7th, 2024, you're going to get the constructed response I do in this, in the email, follow-up email. Okay. So just follow along with that. This is an abbreviated study guide. If you click this link here, you can go to the full study guide and purchase that there. But remember, this is just abbreviated here. Okay. All right. And this is the full study guide just to show you a little bit of the difference. It's much more intense. We have 10 practice problems after each section. Notice I break up the book by the content categories on the exam. So we have strategic leadership. You can see it's much more intense, lots of information, lots of graphs, data to look at. And then I have questions just for that section, right? Then we go to and detailed answer explanations. Please read these, even if you get it correct, because it helps you to understand why you got it wrong and why you got it right. Sometimes you guess and you need to know why you got it correct. Then, of course, we go to the next section, professional development, building capacity. We talk about that. And then, there are 10 questions that have to do with that, and then at the end of this study guide, let me just go to the end. There's a full practice test here with all of the information there. And let me scroll down here. Very detailed answer explanations. And then again, the constructed response, which gives you 4 prompts. We have prompt 1, prompt 2, prompt 2 response, prompt 3, sample response for prompt 3, and prompt 4. So I give you sample responses as well. But this free one will do good too. So just decide what you want to do. All right. So let me go back to my presentation. This is number 1 in the free study guide. All right. So I always like to read my answer choices first on the SLLA 6990 because it helps me to find good words and eliminate bad words. All right. So that's really important. You want to look for good words and eliminate bad words. Now, this question stem is super short. So I would read the question stem first. But a lot of times the question stem is like a whole scenario. And I have several on here like that. So we are going to read this one, the question first. But normally I start with the answer choices. So I say a needs assessment is a systematic process for. So a needs assessment. Let's have a look at the answer choices. A, determining and addressing needs or gaps between current conditions and desired conditions or wants. A looks good. I'm going to circle it. Let's have a look at B. Surveying teachers to determine areas of improvement and where to allocate resources. Now, here's where this test gets very nuanced. And I want you to keep in mind, if we are truly looking for what we need in the school, is just surveying teachers enough? Should we survey teachers? Absolutely. They are our eyes and ears on the front lines, right? They are in it. They know probably better than anyone. However, a survey is not enough. That's a qualitative measure, an important one, but we also need quantitative data too. We need to look at test scores. We need to look at where we are excelling and where we aren't. So surveying teachers to determine areas of improvement and then straight up allocating resources based on a survey, not good practice. We also need more data. So B, I would cross out on any answer choice because surveying teachers is not enough. It is definitely a piece, but not the whole piece. C, using student achievement data to drive decisions made in the classroom. All right. You might say, well, this has a lot of good words. This has data, drive decisions. Those are good words. But we have this made in the classroom. Remember, we are building level administrators, and you want to keep this in mind in your interview process. And I talk about this in the interview course. We tend to fall back on our classroom experience as we are going through this process, because if you're becoming an assistant principal, you're just now leaving the classroom. So the classroom is where you're most comfortable. You probably did an awesome job in the classroom. That's why you're becoming a leader. But this is not building. This is one classroom. We need to be thinking building wide in our mind. This is the whole school, not just our classroom or one classroom. D, analyzing resources and determining allocation based on desired student achievement. All right, D looks like it's good. And this is where people say, well, all 4 answer choices look good. Why is D incorrect? We don't analyze resources and determine allocation. I don't look at a pile of textbooks and go, I have this pile of textbooks. Let me give them out to the science teachers. What does that do? Do they even need them? Are they short any textbooks? What does the data say? We don't analyze resources. We analyze data. Be careful. D is out. These little tiny things you want to be on the lookout for. Now, A has the word needs in it, so it's kind of a gimme. But this is what a needs assessment is. It's collecting data, which is what we're doing here, determining and addressing needs. We're looking at the data. We're finding gaps in the data. We're finding holes. And then we'd say, okay, what are our current conditions and where do we want to be? And how do we fill that gap? A is the best answer. Keep that in mind, all right? Be careful. You might say, well, all of these sound good. Not when you look closer. Let's have a look at number 2. Okay, this is a good one. So this has got a long question here. I'm going to read the answer choices first and show you how this test is perfect for working backwards, eliminating bad words, and zeroing in on good words. A, form a committee of experienced teachers to analyze the data and come up with solutions. I like A. Not only does it have a democratic approach with the committee, which you want to be on the lookout for, especially for strategic leadership questions, but it also has this analyze the data. We don't just come up with a solution. We got to look at the data first. Anytime it says, what should you do first? And I see that in the question step here, question stem, first step. Data is usually the first step. Let's have a look at B. Review the SIP and analyze current goals identified in the plan. We could look at the SIP, the school improvement plan. I don't hate B. I like A better, though. I'll just put a little dot next to B. C. Delegate part of the task to the assistant principal so time can be used efficiently. I don't like C as much as I like A or B. Now, delegation is a part of strategic leadership, but only after we look at all the data and figure out where our colleagues could help us the best. And I can see here, first step in this question stem, first step is not to delegate. First step is to analyze data. So C is out. D, disaggregate the data based on subgroups and analyze achievement gaps and areas of weakness. Ooh, I like D. All right, we're between A and D here. So let's have a look. The principal of LES High School is working on increasing the curriculum and instructional focus to include a targeted approach to student subgroups, specifically students who are identified as low socioeconomic and ESC. ESC is also special ed. What should be the first step the principal takes? All right, I'm going to cross off A. Forming a committee is jumping ahead because the principal needs to kind of figure things out before forming a committee. D is a better answer. And also it has disaggregate the data first. So I have this data set. I have my subgroups, splayed out here. I need to look and see, all right, what is this telling me? Look closer, get, meta with the data. Is it their reading scores? Is it their math scores? Get even smaller in the reading. Is it their phonological awareness? Is it their phonics? Is it their fluency? And then look at it based on subgroups. All right, who's struggling the most? Is it our, special education students, ESC? Is it our low socioeconomic? Is it our ELL students? Is it our general ed? Sometimes the general ed drops. And then another good word, achievement gaps. We need to close the achievement gap. If you see the word achievement gap in an answer choice, it's probably the right answer. D is going to be better than A because of one little nuance, disaggregating the data. That is the first step. Okay. We do have the word analyze the data in the committee here, but based on what we read in the question stem and this answer choice, forming a committee jumps ahead a little bit too much. First step is the principal needs to analyze the data first before doing anything. All right, let's have a look at number 4. Now, this is one where we should definitely read the answer choices first. Sometimes you'll get this big, huge thing here. You'll get all turned around in the data. You'll be like, oh my God, oh my God. And you don't even have to read all this. Let's read the answer choices first, okay? A, should the school investigate other reading programs that may maximize reading gains for all student groups? Okay, nothing in there about data. We have this data set here. I don't like A enough to choose it, but I don't hate it enough to cross it off. Let's go with B. How can the achievement gap in reading performance between the total group and the subgroup be closed? What did I say? Closing the achievement gap is our number one job. I love B without ever having to read the question. Let's have a look at C. What factors were most important in promoting improvement in the school's overall performance in reading? C is okay too. I mean, C has to do with a little bit of data analysis, but it doesn't have the word achievement gap, and it doesn't have the word subgroup, and it doesn't have the word close the achievement gap. D, how many students are in each subgroup, and how does that impact the data? Does that really matter how many kids are in each subgroup? I mean, if we are going to disaggregate the data, we want to know the sample size, of course, but that's not what we're trying to do here. I am still going with B as my best answer. Let's read this little question stem here. After reviewing this data, the middle school principal should place the highest priority on answering which of the following questions. Well, no matter what, the achievement gap should be the number one priority. So B is still my best answer. Let's have a look at the top here. The principal at ABC Elementary School has implemented a new district reading program. She continuously monitors the progress of the program. Below is the data. Still B is my best answer. Let's have a look. Do we have an achievement gap here? Yes, we do. All students to low SES, 33 to 49%, 45 to 63%. There is definitely a gap in these scores. B is the best answer. And I didn't even have to get lost in all of this. This is why working backwards is your best bet on this exam. Are you going to always be able to identify the number one answer right away? Maybe not, but you'll have at least two like we did here. We had A and D. Now you got a 50% chance, much better than, a 25% chance. So use that technique, especially when you get these big, giant questions with data connected to it. All right, let's have a look at number 8 here, jumping ahead. Again, I have a big old scenario here. Let's have a look at the answer choices first. A, provide differentiated instruction that builds on students' unique strengths and experiences. Okay, I love the term differentiated instruction. I love the term unique strengths and experiences. I'm going to put a little star here. Let's read. B, incorporate project-based learning activities into the curriculum. Well, I like the word project-based learning activities, but differentiated instruction is going to go with students who struggle. It's usually a better answer than project-based learning activities. I don't hate B, but it's not my number one. A is still my number one. C, develop individualized performance criteria to drive instruction and assessment for each student. All right. C sounds fancy. The problem with C is we're going to do individualized performance criteria for students in the school. We're going to give individualized assessments for students. That's not the way it works. We can differentiate instruction. We can have individualized education programs, but the assessments, the performance criteria doesn't change. The performance criteria are the standards. We can't individualize standards. Standards are standard. They are among all the students. That's the point. So C is a trap. I'm going to cross it off. We don't do individualized performance criteria. We do individualized instruction, and that's what this is, but not tests. D, create and implement standards-aligned independent study program. All right, standards-aligned is a good word. But independent study programs, not so great. Why? Well, typically we have to work with all students, and implementing independent study programs for everyone is not always going to work. Do they have this at the college level? Yeah, they have independent studies at college. In the public schools, this is pretty difficult to do when you're talking about thousands of students. I don't love D. A and B are in the running, A being my best. Let's read the question stem first. The leadership team can best support teachers who serve these students by providing teachers with professional development aimed at, all right, serve these students sounds to me like we've got some struggling students. Let's keep reading above. After a needs assessment, the leadership team, so they conducted their own data analysis already, has decided to focus on certain subgroups. Subgroups are typically those who are subbed out for socioeconomic status, English language learners, special education students who are, in the bottom quartile of scoring, things like that. Especially English language learners and low SES. The needs assessment data shows these students tend to perform at substantially lower levels than their peers, both in the classroom and on standardized tests. What should we do? Well, if they're struggling, we're going to implement differentiated instruction. Now, here's the thing we want to be careful of, and I always like to say this when we have questions like this. Let me go ahead and stop sharing here. Oops. Let me stop sharing. All right, subgroup soapbox here. We tend to look at subgroups in our data, and it's important because the subgroups help tell us a story, but it doesn't tell us the whole story. Not every single student in a subgroup is going to struggle. Now, students who are learning English are obviously going to struggle on their English language arts reading exam at the end of the year, which is what we typically get data from, right? So we have that reading assignment at the end of the year. And students who are, English language learners are going to struggle with that. Also, typically, students who are low socioeconomic sometimes have a harder time with achievement. There is data to support that. But does that mean that every student who comes from low socioeconomic is in the bottom of the reading scores? Absolutely not. So we have to be careful. We are generalizing in order to kind of understand the data, but we need to keep in mind our unique students. I had several students who came from low socioeconomic status who were high flyers, were killing it. They went on to Ivy League schools. We don't want to label kids like, oh, they come from poverty, so they can't learn. That's not true. Okay. So we want to make sure that we are not using the deficit thinking. We want to come from an abundance place. All of these students bring strengths with them. These students are survivors. They're tough. They know how to work through adversity. They are amazing. And just because we're talking about subgroups, we need to be careful that we don't assign bias to it. It's a way to understand the data. It's just one measure. Remember, we're looking at all measures. And so I always like to, when I get a question like that, I want to be sure we have a little discussion about subgroups. But again, providing differentiated instruction is going to help those students best. And it says, let's go back to, sorry, I had to do my little soapbox there. Let's go back to here. It said, the leadership team can best support teachers who serve these students by providing professional development aimed at. We want to show them how to differentiate their instruction. And here's what that builds on students' unique strengths and experiences. This is the abundance thinking and not deficit thinking when it comes to students in, quote, subgroups. They have unique strengths and experiences. So when we differentiate instruction, we don't want to come from the mindset, we want to teach teachers this. Don't come from the mindset of, oh, these students are struggling, they can't do it. Instead, this particular task is difficult for the students. Let's build on their unique strengths and experiences to make it even better for them. So that's where A kind of switches it to, getting rid of that deficit thinking and moving more into abundance thinking or strengths-based thinking. This is strengths-based, and that's how you want to approach it on the exam and in life. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and look over here and take some questions before we get into the constructed response. Okay, Dan, great question. If there is a multiple answer question and I get 2 out of 3 of them correct, is the whole question wrong or is there partial credit? Unfortunately, there is no partial credit. So what Dan is asking, and thank you for going over this because we get lots of questions on this. You might get an item that says choose all that apply. And let's say you choose 2, but there are 3 that are correct. If you only choose 2, you don't get any credit. You get the whole item wrong. There is no partial credit. Great question. Want to make sure those are hard. They're worth more points. They're actually weighted a little bit more than your typical low level question, but you don't get partial credit. Okay. I have the online course already and I have watched the other videos, but need a refresher. My test is on Monday. All right, Melissa, I recommend obviously watching this webinar, go back and review some of those videos, get those good words. Remember the good words and the backwards approach, working backwards is going to help you. So some of you are seeing me do that. And these questions I'm telling you on this exam is going to save you time. And when we work backwards and we focus on the good words and eliminate the bad words, that will help you with those. Hey, all 4 of these look like they could be correct. There's only one correct answer, unless you're talking about like what Dan talked about, where there might be 3, choose all that apply, choose 2 or whatever. But typically there's only one correct answer, and try to find those bad words or bad associations and get rid of those to help narrow it down. Okay. What is the approximate time for each question you should spend on each question? Alan, good question. You have a finite amount of time. I would say, some of them you have to read in depth. That's why working backwards is so important. It'll save you time. I say no more than 2 or 3 minutes on the bigger ones. You need time at the end for your, to go back and kind of check. Here's another thing I do not recommend. Don't go back and change all your answers. Typically, your first answer is the correct answer. I rarely go back on my exams and check my answers. What I will do is flag one. Let's say I don't know one. I will answer it, but I'll hit it to flag it and go back and just see if I have time. You want to answer it because you want to make sure you answer every question on this exam. You don't want to leave any blank, right? But if I'm still on the fence about it, I might flag it. But the best way to do things is to make a decision and move on. Going back and forth and being wishy-washy can hurt you. Eliminate bad words, zero in on good words. Remember, a couple things to remember. Number 1, First step is always to analyze the data, disaggregate the data before you do anything. That goes for behavior as well. If you have a situation where a teacher has said the student is cheating or the student is roughhousing in the hallway, you don't just send the kid to ISS right away. You do an investigation. You talk to the students. That's data collection. So we're always collecting data. We're always doing a needs assessment. Do the questions in another question Dan is asking, do the questions occur in the order of the categories you describe or are they randomized? I don't know. It depends. Here's how testing works really quickly. I'm going to give you a rundown of how testing works. Okay. So for the SLLA or the 5412, they have something called item banks. The testing company has these digital containers, and inside the containers are hundreds of questions for each content category. So there's a container for strategic leadership. There's a container for instructional leadership. There's a container for ethical leadership, and on for all the content categories. Inside those containers are questions that have been built by teachers, educational leaders, and experts, okay? They have been vetted. They have been used on exams. So if you get extra questions on your exam, which you might have, and they don't count against you, you will not know which ones are the extra ones, which ones count against you. Why? Because they're testing new items. And if I told you that this is like a test item that we're testing out, it doesn't count against you or towards you, are you going to approach that item the same way you would if it were a real test question? No. So we have to make sure that we are testing items so that we get the right read on those items. And so after they're vetted and all that, they go into these digital containers. Then they make forms of the exams. Form A, B, C, D, depending on the exam, there could be 100 different forms. There could be 2 forms. Sometimes you go in, you get the same test. Just depends. So let's say Form A, it takes out the percentage of questions for this content category. You saw it's like 17% from this one, 13%, 20%, whatever. Takes out, 10, 15 questions here, 22 questions here, 27 questions here from each content category. And they throw them on the exam. Sometimes when you take a test, you can kind of see that they are in the order. Sometimes you take a test and they aren't. It just depends on how they randomize it, and I don't know. But that's how testing works. And that's why you can't say, oh, they changed the exam. Just because you go in and get a different test than you did the first time does not mean they changed the exam. You just got a different form. The standards are the same. The test is the same. This test is aligned to the Professional Educational Leadership Standards, the PSELs. The Professional Standards for Educational Leadership. We will link those up in the email. You're going to want to go over those. And when the leadership standards changed, they will typically change the test. But just because you got a different form doesn't mean they changed the exam. It's just like if you're a teacher and you do a test by noon or by lunchtime, the kids have shared your test. That's why you have different forms of the test. The same thing goes with big companies. How much are the constructed response questions worth? The constructed response questions are worth 25% of your overall grade. So it's a substantial amount. You have to make sure that you do well on the constructed response because it is 25%. You can't just ignore the constructed response, okay? All right, Dan, no problem. Those are 2 really good questions a lot of people have, and sometimes I forget to tell them in the webinar, so I'm glad you brought them up. All right, so we're going to go over the constructed response now. 12 out of 24 is only 50% on the constructed response. It's half. I would shoot for more 65 to 70%, and I'm going to help you do that today. 70 is high. You don't need a 70% correct. But typically the way the constructed responses are graded, you have 2 readers. One is a human, one is a computer. If they agree within 1 point, that's your score. If they disagree by more than a point, a second human reader comes in to break the tie. They typically don't disagree. And again, you're talking about money and time. And so I don't know how much they're really looking at this. Again, I've never been on the committee to grade these particular essays, but they are, people familiar with the content. It's usually English teachers or former assistant principals who are reading these. But I'm going to show you how to use keywords and really keep your writing succinct so you'll get a good grade on the writing and you'll be able to practice it. Okay. Do you happen to have a list of good words? I do in the study guide. There is a in the back of the book, right before the practice test, I believe. Yes. Okay. I'll just hold this up for you. See, good words list. All right. So I have strategic leadership good words, instructional leadership good words. This is page 175. You know what? Let me just share it on the screen. Let me just share this for you guys so I don't have to hold up my book. Okay. Let's go here and we'll go up here. Hang on, por favor. There we go. All right, you can see in the book we have good words based on strategic leadership, instructional leadership, climate and cultural leadership, all the way down. And then this will show you exactly how to kind of think about these words. It's kind of like a glossary in the back. So I definitely want you to have a look at those. And then, of course, this professional standards for educational leaders, the PSELs. Let's talk about that really quick. I recommend you download that document. I am not going to show it to you today for copyright reasons. That is their document. I don't want to use it. It's not a good idea, but you can download it. Just Google PSELs. We will link it in the email as well. In there, I don't want you to memorize the standards, but in there is good language that's on the exam. The test specifications and the blueprint is also something you're going to want to download because those have the good words in them. So have a look at those things like, disaggregate the data, using a democratic approach. All the good words that I pull from here are from the PSELs. Okay. How is the 6011 different from the 5412 and the 6990? The 6011, I believe, is an older exam, Charlene. I'm not sure, but they all cover the same stuff. They're all aligned to the PSELs. Don't get too hung up on specific differences in questions because you don't know what questions you're going to get on the exam. It's best to have the content knowledge and the strategic approach so that you can do well on this. Okay. All right. Okay, Nicole, good question. What do you think about rescoring if you've missed it by 1 or 2 points? Don't do it. It's a waste of time and money. They're never going to side in your favor. Out of all the years I've been doing this, I've only had one student, one prospective teacher win on a rescore. Typically what they'll do is they'll find more wrong with your essay or with your multiple choice, and you'll get a worse score. Don't do it. Just get your score report, see where you missed, and go back in and take it. I know a lot of people want to do the rescore. It's not in your, these guys, they got hundreds of thousands of people taking these exams. They don't have time to analyze your test. So they're going to do things to discourage you from doing it. Just take the L, fix it up, be resilient, get back in there and take it again. Okay. What's a good way to prepare for the constructed response? My test is on Tuesday. I'm so glad you asked, Cherise. Let me show you how to do that. All right, so let's have a look at the constructed response that I have here. Now, I'm going to send this to you. This is not in the free study guide. I'm going to send this to you in the email. If you're watching in the future, you already have it, and you can rewatch this video. Now, I have very extensive writing practice in my online course, of course, but remember, first strategy you want to think about are using the good words in this constructed response. The other thing is you're going to work backwards here as well. We just did a whole thing on working backwards. Do the same thing. If you start up here and you start reading and you go all the way down, you are going to get lost in this scenario. You're going to have to reread it 40 times. Okay. Start here at the task. 1, 2, and 3. Sometimes they'll be numbered. Sometimes they'll be bullets. Start at the bottom first. Work backwards. My first task is conduct a nuanced analysis of the provided mathematics achievement data. Discuss ways to implement practices to measure student progress throughout the school year. Guess what? I don't even have to look at this data to know how do we measure student progress throughout the school year. We use formative assessments. I don't have to read the data to know that. So on my scratch paper, I'm going to put number 1, and let me just do it for you. Put in a blank. Okay. So let's say this is my scratch paper. Number 1, summarize data. And I'm going to write this how I would for myself. It's not going to be pretty. Okay. Math scores. I'm just quickly, and then formative assessments. Okay. Why? Oh, it's up too high. Hang on. Let me do this again. I'm looking at my screen and I can see it's being blocked by something. Let's go down here a little bit. Sorry about that. Number 1, summarize data. It's for math, and we're going to use formative assessments. Okay. Sorry about my handwriting. It's terrible, but I want to make sure this is what it would look like if I was doing this. Okay. Let's go back. Number 2. So this is paragraph 1. I'm going to divide this into 3 paragraphs because I have 3 bullets here, 3 things I need to do. Make it easy on yourself, make it easy on the grader. If you make it easy for the person grading your essay to find your answers, you're already going to do exponentially better. If you make it a huge paragraph and the person has to go around the world to figure out what you're trying to do, it's going to be hard on them and they're not going to like it. Think of yourself. You don't want to read like all this stuff that has nothing to do with what's going on. The first paragraph is going to be a summary of the data, and I'm going to fit in there a little bit about formative assessment and how I'm going to use it. Okay. Second task, let's have a look. Formulate a comprehensive strategy for engaging teachers in this process. What's that? Professional development. Okay, let's go back. So they are properly trained to use data to make instructional decisions. All right, what's the professional data development going to be? Data analysis. Maybe differentiated instruction, but definitely how to use data chats, something. We need to teach teachers how to use the data. And a lot of teachers just need help with this, especially if they're brand new. You're going to have a lot of brand new teachers who have never looked at assessment data before. There's a lot of turnover in education. So we got to train them. All right. And the third one, anticipate potential challenges and complications of implementing your plan. This is a big one for leadership. When we implement a plan, we need to say, where is there going to be a barrier? Okay. Well, right away, I know that I have new teachers. And what else? Time, money, buy-in. All of these are barriers to anything you're going to try to do as a leader. Oh my God, my handwriting. I need to work on it. I'm so sorry, you guys. I do more typing now than I do writing. So all of those are barriers. Notice I have my whole thing mapped out here before I even look at the thing. This is working backwards for success. Now read it. Okay. I'm going to start here. I'm going to continue to work backwards. The Extant School Improvement Plan incorporates new mathematics curriculum, tailored professional development, and additional resources aimed at struggling students. In your assessment, you discerned that the plan, while research-based, lacks mechanisms for measuring student progress incrementally throughout the year. This right here is where we need to get our formative data. So it looks like we've implemented a plan, but it's lacking some things. All right, let's have a look at the data here. You can see the gaps. Special ed is 32% in 6th grade, meeting performance to 55 of the overall performance grade. Also, general education is 58, 32 here. There's a gap, 44 to 58, 40 to 58. You don't need a PhD in data analysis to see there's a gap here. We have 52 from the general ed curriculum, 41 low socioeconomic, special ed 28, English language learners 36, much less than the 52. 54% in 8th grade. Gap, gap, gap. All right, we have an achievement gap. Remember, achievement gap is a good word. You may want to reference it in your writing, okay? Formative assessment, monitoring progress, continuous improvement, all of that is important for getting a good grade on this constructed response. Remember those good words from your reading. You're going to use them here. And further, let's go. As an aspiring school leader, you are assigned a task of evaluating a school improvement plan aimed at elevating student achievement in mathematics. The most recent performance data in mathematics for grades 6 through 8 is below. So we see problems in all grade levels. We need to fix it. We already have a school improvement plan and a new mathematics curriculum, but it doesn't feel like it's doing enough. We got to make it better. And our task 1, 2, and 3 is going to make that happen. All right. I've got my map here. First thing I'm going to do in paragraph 1, I'm going to summarize the data. In math, I'm just going to discuss where there's some gaps. You do not have to spend an hour, just a quick summary. And then I'm going to talk about the importance of formative assessments to make sure we're monitoring progress throughout the year to figure out if we need to modify instruction. We also want to train teacher in formative assessments. Let's put that here. Because a lot of people don't know how to use formative assessments if they're brand new. So professional development is going to focus on data analysis and formative assessments. And then the third paragraph is going to be our barriers. Well, we want to do this, but we have a lot of new teachers and the time. Our teachers are already spread way too thin. What am I going to do to make this up to them so that they'll stay in their professional learning communities and work on the stuff that I need? All right, let's have a look. Paragraph 1, I've drafted it here for you. I apologize for all the text on the page, but remember, this is a writing task, so there's no way around it. I hate when people are, I'm not going to read this to you, I'm going to summarize it, but it's hard to look at this when you're on a video. So, all right, I'm just going to get right into it. I think that somebody asked me about strategies for this. What a lot of prospective leaders do is they like to be very wordy and show everybody just how smart they are. Don't do that. I understand the tendency to do that. Get in and tell the person, be direct, exactly what you're trying to do. Boom. The data set reveals substantial disparities in mathematical proficiency across student subgroups. And then I go right into it. For instance, special education students manifest a particularly low achievement rate, 28 to 35%, depending on the grade level. Similarly, English language learners and students from low socioeconomic backgrounds also underperform compared to general education students. I just broke down the subgroups really quickly. 2 sentences. Did not have to be a dissertation. Just a quick thing. We got students in special education, English language learners, and students from low socioeconomic performing at lower levels than general education students. Now I get into what am I going to do about it? To meet the needs of these students throughout the academic year, we will implement department-wide formative assessment. Notice that I summarized the math data, and now I'm talking about formative assessment. This approach, now I'm going to explain why it's important. You can't just say formative assessments. You got to tell the person you know what you're talking about. This approach uses periodic low-stakes assessments and student self-assessments to, good word, monitor progress, providing real-time feedback that can be used for, good word, instructional adjustment. In addition, math teachers will use their weekly professional learning communities, a good word, there's that professional development in there, to build common formative assessments and analyze the data together. Good word, good word, good word, all around here. And now I say, why are common assessments important? Building common formative assessments will help the math team build continuity throughout the department and will effectively ensure effective data analysis and decision making. Now, you might be like, whoa, that's kind of a big paragraph. I have my doctorate in educational leadership. This stuff comes to me very quickly. You could just say up here, summarize the data, and you could just stop at, we will implement formative assessments and, the next one is about professional development. So you'll hit the training, but you can just say, we're going to implement department-wide formative assessments and say why they're important. Well, what do formative assessments do? They help monitor progress and help the teachers adjust their instruction. You could get rid of this whole part here and still do really well. I just added it for a little extra, okay? But you could stop at instructional adjustment right here. All right, paragraph 2. Remember, paragraph 2 is about professional development. We're going to train teachers in data analysis and how to build common formative assessments. Get right into it. Don't use a bunch of intro sentences. Nobody wants to read it. The next step is to implement comprehensive strategy for teacher engagement in this process. Implementation will include professional development in data literacy and effective PLCs. We want them to analyze the data. We have to show them how to. Where teachers will learn to design common assessments as a team and, good word, disaggregate the formative assessment data they produce to make instructional decisions. Good word, good word, good word, all the way down. This professional development will be, love it, teacher-led, which means we're going to utilize teachers to help us get the buy-in. Remember, we said the buy-in is a problem? With 2 respected teachers from the team administering the training. I'm getting real specific here. This is the specificity you need to get the grade. The good grade. If you just say, we're going to use professional development on common assessments, what does that look like? Show me, don't tell me. Administration will be available to support. And here we go. To support our new teachers, novice teachers will be paired with instructional coaches skilled and data-driven instruction. So I talk about that little barrier there, but I'm going to talk about it even more in my third paragraph, the barrier. Get right into it. Anticipating challenges and barriers to this process is essential. The two biggest barriers to this plan are time constraints and lack of experience within the department. Remember, we said that time and new teachers. New teachers are going to need help. To combat time constraints, so now I'm going to break it down into more specifics. We will use budget reallocations to fund substitute teachers who can relieve regular math faculty weekly, providing them with needed time for their PLCs. All I said there is we're going to hire substitute teachers to cover classes for our math faculty who need to work in their PLCs during the school day. Now, this is a dream. This never happens. We never have enough money to do this. But if you are going to be a leader, you should try to do this as much as possible. Remember, you don't have to be realistic here. This is pie in the sky type stuff. You're not actually out of school. You can come up with all kinds of things for this as long as you have the knowledge to back it up. And in this case, we know time constraints are a problem. And if we want teachers to buy into this, we need to pay them. So we do it during the school day and we give them subs. I used to do this. We didn't have any money for subs, so I would cover their classes. And other assistant principals would cover their classes. Don't be afraid to cover classes as an assistant principal. It keeps you relevant. It shows teachers you care. It shows teachers you're not afraid to go back in the classroom because they'll say that all the time. You don't know what it's like in the classroom. I go back in the classroom all the time. Do it. Just a little side note there. All right. This also ensures faculty are getting paid for the time they spend on this project. Important. We need to provide resources. Now, along with pairing novice teachers with those who are more experienced, which is what I talked about in the previous paragraph, we will implement a scaffolded professional development approach. Oh my gosh, love it. Scaffolded professional development approach, meaning I'm going to tailor the professional development to the needs of the new teachers, beginning with basic data literacy and progressing to advanced instructional strategies. Notice I said scaffolded professional development approach. What is that? Well, here it is. We start with basic and we move to more advanced, just like we do with students. This will be differentiated so all teachers' professional development needs are met. Finally, the administrative team will be dedicated to support during this implementation. All right. So notice 3 paragraphs here. We had a summary of the data and formative assessments. Then we had teacher engagement in the process, professional development on data literacy, and how to build common formative assessments. And then finally, barriers. New teachers, time, money. We covered that here and we got into it specifics. Be careful of being too general. We want to make sure that we are specific. Okay. All right. Let me stop sharing and go to the questions here. Can you just make a bulleted list instead of writing paragraph due to time constraints? Okay, Vanessa, good question. You can use bullets, but it should be implemented in a paragraph form. You don't want to just do bullets. I have done constructed response where I have a paragraph and you might say something like, the professional development will include : and then have bullets. You could do that. But you need to explain. You can't just throw bullets down there. You won't get a good grade. It has to be. Now, you can shorten your paragraphs. Just talk about what you want to talk about, but they need to be in paragraph form. Sometimes I use headings. Like if I were going to do this 3-paragraph thing here, I would do like overall data analysis for one heading. Next paragraph would be professional development. And next paragraph would be barriers to implementation. I use headings a lot in my writing tasks. Is there a word count minimum? I see you use we in the paragraph. Okay. You can use I and we. It's fine. It's asking you to take the role as a assistant principal. So you can say we will, I will. You could also say the leader should. If you're not comfortable, which I understand because y'all are probably in master's courses and doctoral courses and using the I is frowned upon. If you're in that mode of third person narrative, just change it to the administrative team will, teachers will. You can just take the I and the we out of it. Okay. Is there a word count minimum? No, there is no, you have to write this many words or this many paragraphs. Some you'll be able to write one paragraph. Some you'll need 3. You have to make sure that you cover everything in the task. So when I worked backwards and there were those 3 things I have to do, you have to do all 3 things or you're going to miss points. So here are the keys you want to make sure you do. Number 1, work backwards. Start with the task, set up your scratch paper quickly. We are not writing everything out on the scratch paper. We're just kind of formulating our paragraphs and how we're going to do it, right? Go straight to the task first, making sure that on our map, on our scratch paper, we are working on everything that we have in those bullets or in those numbers for the task, okay? Then read the scenario, the question, or the data set, whatever they're giving you. Then go in and separate your tasks by paragraph. That's going to make it easy for them to find. Keep it succinct. Don't go on and on. Just start off with the first thing I would do is this. The next thing I would do is this. If you say something like differentiated professional development, show me what that looks like. You can't just say that. You got to tell them. And that would be starting off with easy data analysis and moving to more complex. Just a quick sentence after what you say. So differentiated professional development, you might say, for example. Using those terms, for example, really help. Okay? All right. Awesome. Now, bullets, you can use bullets. I don't want to dissuade you from that. It's just that you want to make sure you have a paragraph above and a paragraph below. You can't just throw bullets in there. You got to explain. Okay? But it is a nice way to kind of get your point across if it enhances the writing. Okay? All right. Well, that seems to be it, you guys. Listen, one more thing. I want to show you some more free resources here. Let me share screen. Okay. So definitely go to the website. You're going to get an email with 20% off. The 20% off coupon is in the chat. If you're watching me on social, there's a link to sign up for this webinar. You'll get the 20% off coupon when you sign up. So if you're on social, and I know you're probably there on Facebook, hello, YouTube, hello, you can get 20% off. Remember, the online course for the 6990 has everything. Somebody asked me about the 6991, which is the superintendent course. I don't have anything yet. But if you use the 6990, you just take everything you're talking about there and use it district-wide. But I don't have a program specific for that yet. But definitely check out my videos on YouTube. This has everything, courses with hours of video, comprehensive approach to the writing. It also includes the audio course. If you just want a study guide, and if you want the 5412, just get this. It's all the same, okay? If you want just the study guide, you can do that under leadership, 5412. And you can also hit it with the audio course. Sorry. This gives you a 15% off the audio course. If you want, you can add these separately to your cart so you can get the 20% off coupon that we offer for this webinar. So just untoggle them and put them in your cart twice. Or when you go to checkout, undo the coupon, this 15% off coupon, and you can add the 20% off coupon. That's a little trick. Now, let's say you got this book on Amazon. Let me go back here. Oops, sorry. I'm sharing screen and everything. Okay. Let's say you got the SLLA 6990 on Amazon and you're like, I want the online course. You can send us an email and show us your receipt for this and with your name visible, and we will give you the price of the book off of the online course because you're going to get it with the online course. So let's say you bought the physical book and you're like, man, I really wish I could get the online course, but I want to pay that huge amount because I already got the book. We will apply your book price to the online course. So if that's something you want to do, you can do that. We don't give you the whole thing for free. People say, oh, I want the course now. I bought the book. We don't give it to you for free. We take the price of the book off the course. Okay. Now, beyond that, we have my YouTube channel here. And it looks like, I hope we're live here on YouTube. Yes, we are. We are live. I have tons of stuff here. And if you go down to SLLA breakdown, this playlist here, you will see many webinars before this. You will see other videos for that. I also have leadership playlist. If you go here under playlist, I have a leadership playlist. I have a how to get an assistant principal position. Some of you asking for the SSA 6991. I have videos for that, but not a program. I have lots of stuff here to help you with that. Check out my YouTube channel for sure. Okay, TikTok. I am on TikTok, shorter videos here. If you have teachers who need help, this is a great way to get that content as well. And I have leadership videos here. Of course, Facebook, we have lots of, and hopefully I'm live on Facebook here. I think I am. Yep, we're live here. Good. I have lots of different things. We have these carousels that are amazing, just little things you can, save to your phone that'll help you. This one's on ChatGPT. Loving ChatGPT these days, using it everywhere. Also on Instagram, lots of free videos in our Reels. Everything we post on TikTok and YouTube, we shorten it and put it on Instagram Reels. So all that is good. And then finally, over here under free webinars, you are attending a free webinar right now, but I have other webinars. I just did one for the leadership resume and interview process. You may want to check that out if you're trying to get jobs there, teacher interview process. And the next one's coming up. I've got 5025 and then Praxis teaching reading. So if you know some teachers who need help with that, let them know and we will blast that out all over our socials. Okay. All right. So that wraps things up. How long is the coupon valid for? It's valid for, if you attend this, you get the coupon. So don't worry about that. So the online course includes every item available. Yes, that gives you the video courses, the digital study guide, and the audio course. The audio course is at the end. I love the audio course because you can listen to it while you are vacuuming, walking, whatever. It's great on the phone. And make sure you have a good internet connection. Some people are like, oh, it won't come through. You got to have a good internet connection, obviously, to just like you would for a podcast or anything like that. All right, Michelle, it's my pleasure. Thank you for attending. The ETS Praxis, when you purchase online practices, you only get a certain amount of sign-in access before you have purchase again. Oh, good point. When you buy a course from me, it's for as long as you need it. They do not expire. A lot of business people are like, you shouldn't do that. You should have a membership. I feel that if you buy it and you need more time, then you need more time. So what we do typically, if you haven't used your course in over 6 months, we assume you're done. We kind of move that into the archive. But if you come back in 6 months and you're like, hey, my course, I don't have access, we'll just give you access again. But it doesn't expire. So if it's dormant for 6 months, we tend to purge those out to free up space in our LMS. But that's it. What is the name listed on your Instagram page? It's KJ_Kathleen Jasper. I have a personal one and then I have a business one. KJ_Kathleen Jasper. Ashley, highly recommend the book. It has been a great help. Awesome. Ashley, thank you so much. Rosalind, thank you. When will you do 5025? That's next week. 5025 is next week. And I'm working on 5024. So if you have friends that need 5024, I'm almost done with that study guide. Not yet. All right. All right, everybody, thank you so much for spending your Saturday with me. We went a little bit over. I appreciate your patience. Work on that stuff. Remember those good words. Check out the study guides. Remember, if you need 5412, it's exactly the same as the 6990. You can get the online course and all of that. And just take your time. It might take you a week, might take you 2 weeks. Just make sure you go through everything, monitor your progress along the way, and make sure you have everything you need. And remember, if you don't get it the first time, you will get it. Keep going, fix it up, get in there and take it again. All right, everybody, good luck. Let us know how you're doing. Have a great day. Bye.